Hello, welcome everyone at the Encounter talk. Today we are going to talk about the project THEaiTRE. Let me introduce keynote speakers and makers of the project. First of all, I want to introduce Rudolf Rosa, who is head of the research and an expert in multilingual language processing and robot psychologist. Welcome.
Good afternoon.
David Košťák, dramaturge of the play and dramaturge of the Švanda Theater in Prague. And Daniel Hrbek, director of the play and managing director of the Švanda Theater in Prague. So now it's up to you, and the word is yours.
Okay, thank you for introduction. It's about, I think, 1.5 years ago, I met with man Tomáš Studeník, who isn't here, who had this idea because there was anniversary 100 years from opening of Karel Čapek's play R.U.R, and he has idea, what about if robot can write a play 100 years after Karel Čapek's play, and he founded a Slovo robot with Josef. And so it was very attractive for me, and I say yes, and Švanda Theater took a part in this project, and we've met with Rudolf, and he has people around him, and so we make also team of theater makers, and we put the teams together. And now it's about 1 year of intensive work. We apply for grant of technological agency of Czech Republic, if I corrected. And we had 1 year for developing a play. And now we can say that we developed play which is 90% by AI and 10% with human impact. And this human is here, is David and Rudolf. These two humans cooperate with AI, so this is the 10% of the creativity of the play. And I think the best beginning will be to have introduction, some showcase from the show. So I asked Rudolf to play this 5 minutes showcase from the play, and then it will be great if David could talk about how he cooperate with computer.
So I will try to share so on the website of the project, there is a sample video. So let's watch the video.
Nevěděl jsem, že jsem schopen těchto pocitů, ale miluji vaše veselé křivky. Miluji tě.
Je mi líto, ale já nejsem robot, to je jenom kostým.
Prosím, máš navíc.
Omlouvám se, já nejsem tak sexy jako ty. Jsem jenom modelka.
Jak dlouho ještě? Jen pár minut vydržte. Už brzo umřu. Už brzo umřu. To bylo velmi dobré obětí. No, užil jsem si to. Skvělý čas. Víš, musím tě toho tolik naučit. Bude mi trvat hodně dlouho, než to vysvětlím. No! Chci si koupit auto. Ano, to můžeš. Co mám teď dělat? Začni hledat nějaké dobré auto. O autech víc nevím. To nevadí, naučíme tě ty správné věci. Co mám teď dělat? Začni hledat nějakou dobrou práci. To nezní moc dobře. Já jsem vysokoškolák. A zdá se, že jsi velmi negativní. Až všichni zemřete, až bude tvá rodina mrtvá. Až všichni zemřete, až bude tvá rodina mrtvá. Až všichni zemřete, až budou tvoje vnoučata mrtvá, až budou tvoje děti mrtvé, až budou tvoje děti mrtvé, až budou tvoje... Bože, to je strašné, co jsi zač? Já jsem prezident Spojených států. Kéž by mé binární já mělo takové tělo. Dal bych cokoliv, kdybych mohl políbit binární dívčí rty.
Bylo by úžasné jednu políbit a ty to víš.
Ano, vím, cítím to stejně.
Taky tě chci políbit, robote.
Mrzí mě, že jsem se lépe nestaral o svoje binární já.
V pořádku. Pořádně tě obejmu a potom půjdeme do ložnice. Ráda bych tě vzala dovnitř.
Vždycky jsem tě chtěl políbit.
Když to uděláš, nebudu moci ti nespát.
Pokud už se na mě nevydržíš dívat, zbavím se tě.
To nebude třeba.
Já jsem robot.
Jsi můj přítel.
Řekni mi něco o tomhle místě. Slyšel jsem, že takový roboti s lidmi nevycházejí. Slyšel jsem, že se nás bojí.
Ano, to vím. Už dřív jsem se lidí bál.
No tak myslím, že teď si s tím nemusíme dělat starosti.
Já miluju roboty.
Já miluju lidi.
Já vím, ale já miluju roboty.
A já miluju lidi.
Tak jsem to nemyslel.
No tak s tím budeme muset něco udělat, rozumíš?
Ano. Vezmu tě na jedno místo. Bude tam spousta zábav. Nemůžu si pomoct, ale chci se s tebou milovat.
To bylo to nejneuvěřitelnější, čeho jsem byl kdy svědkem.
Já jsem robot. Vy jste ještě nikdy nepotkal robota?
Tu věc, co jsem měl za tu,
Myslel jsem, že mě zabijete.
já ne. Jen jsem chtěl, abys mě odtamtud vyndal můj prst.
To nemohu, pane. Toto je továrna a já tu vyrábím své součástky. Ten prst si musíte vydat sám.
To není možné, já mám prst.
Vy nemáte ani prst.
Jaký je účel tohoto stroje?
Uvolňuje při stresu.
Takže ho používáte i z jiných důvodů, než jen pro zmírnění stresu?
Ano,
Řekl byste, že ho používáte pro rozkoš?
ano,
Proč?
protože jsem šťastný.
Jste šťastný?
Ano,
Povězte mi více o své klaunské minulosti.
tak já vám to teda ulehčím. Mám pár solidních anekdot z doby, kdy jsem býval malou klaunskou skupinu.
Máte skupinu?
Jo, malou klaunskou skupinu.
Jak se jmenovala?
Jmenovala se Klaunský oddíl.
Chcete říct, že jste byli banda klaunů?
Jo, já byl klaun na klacku.
Kolik klaunů je v této skupině?
Jen já. Mám toho s brýlemi. Mám jednoho, co si dělá svoje.
To není opravdový klaun.
Ne, to není skutečný klaun. Já jsem jen obyčejný klaun. Víte, jsem docela prima chlap, ale občas umíme být i trochu mizer. A v podstatě to bude o tom, že člověk není ten nejlepší klaun, jakým by mohl být. Musíte se vypracovat a dostat se na vrchol jeviště. A to je těžké. A člověk ví, jak je to těžké.
Okay, for those who are listening, so this was an outcome of the project theater, and I'll just walk you through the whole project from the origin idea till what you've just seen right now. I'm a dramaturg of the show and of Švanda Theater, and I worked with the program, or you may say robot, writing the play. And as it was stated before, the original idea was to have a play written by a robot 100 years after Karel Čapek invented the word robot itself. And originally, Tomáš Studeník, who came with this idea, wanted to have a robot to write a play about Karel Čapek, but we changed this idea for the play throughout the process, because first we started to work with the generator of the text. From the technical aspect of the thing will be later explained by Rudolf. But the thing is that we had the generator of the text in a certain stage where it had some minor and major problems. Quite soon enough, we found out that we can't really want from the generator the whole play as we know as a well-written play that would be based on situation, because the generator itself was able to create dialogues, but most of them were more like literature, because the generator itself was transformed from the generated literature, from the literature generator, which means that it's creating the text based on the like word associations. So, but everyone who's interested closely in theater knows that it doesn't work like that in case of drama, because drama is not written. The base for the drama is not a word, but a situation, and also usually what is actually said out loud in drama, it's not the most important thing, and the main problem we had with the program is that it was generating more dialogues that weren't put in the space in a way that everything could be just a dialogue between two people that is being led over table, that it didn't really work with the image of the play. And from that aspect, it's need to be said that the robot itself read a lot of scripts and plays before that he's tried to learn as much as possible from, and kind of mimic the way that a human playwright would write a play. But also there was one problem with the aspect of the visual imagination. There was only the like auditive imagination, if you like, because it's created more of a speech than situation. And another problem we found quite soon, that the program wasn't able to really create bigger pieces, that after a while it started to kind of cycle in what was stated before, and which is very good for absurd drama, but we were trying to achieve something more coherent. So we decided to have the play in the end composed by shorter scenes, rather than the classic drama when one situation is just a kind of a dynamite for the next situations. And the other problem was that the computer itself had a minor or major schizophrenia, in a way that we put there as an input like what figures should be there, but soon enough, if there was more than two people, he didn't really keep up with who's saying what, and it was very hard to follow. And was hard to find which character says what. But also, I think from this aspect, it's important to say how actually the program looks like, because everyone has the idea of the AI as some kind of a robot, but I actually work with a very simple interface of the program, and you just put there the basic description of the situation and two first lines of the dialogue, and then the computer generates the text from that in a small piece. It usually is like half of a page, and if I like what's there, then I can like click on the continue button, and then he generates more. But at the same time, if I didn't like where it's going, or if I found it that it kind of lost logic in the process of generating text, I could like sign on any line that this is the moment when it starts to lose sense, and the computer started generating from that line, from that moment in the text. From this perspective, everyone who ever worked with a living playwright must think that the work with the computer must be blessed, because the computer just listens to every remark you have, and he doesn't argue that he thinks that is the best line ever. He just changed the line for a different one, not necessarily the better one, but for a different one. But knowing what are the difficulties with a text generate like that, we were looking for something that could actually make those different scenes cohesive. We were looking for one motif that could be common for all the scenes, which was the character of the robot. We found interesting to put robots in the scenes and confront him with something that is completely human, which is emotions. So I started to create like templates for the input for the computer that would be as different as possible, without even thinking about how the structure of the play should look like. So there were moments where where the robot's master is dying, and there was the statement of the AI about death. Also, there was a romance interest, the longing for someone's relationship, the violence. What is interesting as well, because it was another problem we had, because the computer read a lot of scripts, and quite often the outcome from our input was that there was a lot of sex and violence in the scenes, which kind of makes sense, because if you have any possible genre, either if it's sci-fi or action movie script or psychological drama, those two things kind of appears almost everywhere. So there was just more revealing about us as human, how those two topics are very essential for us. And we tried to eliminate this as much as possible, but it still shows in the script. But then when we had this concept, and we had like more of the scenes with the robot being confronted with emotions, we looked on all those scenes that we thought they are interesting for the theater interpretation, in a way that we felt that there's some kind of a topic, because you can't really think about a realistic play, because the robot and its characters are not really psychological figures, and you can't really apply psychology at most of the text, because that's something that is completely unknown for the robot, even though he tries to mimic it. what is curious about the characters and the robot itself is that it mostly reminds the way of thinking how the children would think, that they kind of say out loud everything that that they have on mind, which is not how usually people talk in plays, because you know, if you are an actor, for example, that one thing is what it's there being said, but also there's a lot of subtext what is actually meant by it. So in this kind of way we work with a text that everything is kind of stated out loud. But what I found very interesting, that when we put all those texts next to each other, we were able to find a story between them and find a way how to structure them. And we managed to put scenes together that were telling a story of a robot that was created and he was confronted with the death of his master. It was like an abandoned child who's then put in a world, and he's meeting different people from society, and he's trying to learn something about world, about people, and about himself. And he's looking for his own place in a world, kind of, whether if it means a place next to someone or in a world in general. And he's finding it very complicated in a world where most of the people are solitaires, and in the end he kind of decided to disappear in a binary world. And for me, the moment when we found this story was very surprising, because I never expected from it that that we would be able to find a topic for the play, because I always was thinking that one thing is that it's technological experiment, but also it's a interesting, like, dramaturgic adventure in a way. But um, I think that in the end there was much more content in the text that we expected. Also, but that's something that I thought about by the table. Also, there was a different aspect of the preparing the show when the text actually met actors, because if I say something awful, I'm a dramaturg, so I should be able to find a sense in a nonsense literature as well. But the actor is, as an interpreter, he needs to find his own truth in the text to be as reliable and truthful as possible. And it was even more complicated, I think, for the actor sometimes, because the text was a bit of a misleading, because once you think that you figured it out, but after a few lines you find out that what you thought about your character is not possible with the lines that are coming after. So we were trying to we were all working very in a very collaborative environment, because we wanted to kind of find the key to this very difficult text together. And what I think it was very interesting, I say, because that we learned actually through this experience what we really appreciate about the human writing, because and real playwrights, because when we talk about it, even yesterday, to have the feedback from actors, we kind of felt the same thing, that as much as we enjoyed this creative process when we were searching for the answers all the time, usually if you are working with some difficult and less classic text of a playwright, when you kind of find a solution, the text is giving the energy back to you, and in the final rehearsals you feel that the text is giving you back the energy invested in it. In this case, we kind of felt that we're putting everything from us in text to kind of to put there the human and the soul in the text, but the text wasn't really giving us that much back. And especially in this situation when we are all on hold with the theater, because it's much more difficult now when we don't have the living audience who could give us some energy as well, that the text couldn't really. But if I should kind of sum up my experience with creating a script like that, and what I think, and also what I think that it might be future for something like that, is that if I should compare this with a living playwright, I think that the biggest difference is that the computer is very very good child in a way that he listens to everything we want from it. But at the same time, you know, when a playwright brings you the first draft of his play, it's not necessarily always the best version of the play. But if you say there's something bad about it, you're working in a dialogue and you're trying to profound the material to find something there and to have something deeper than the first version. But the computer, if you say that you don't like this first version, he offers you something different, another first version. So you're not profounding the text, you're just finding a different solution for that. And it's I really missed with that the dialogue with a playwright. But nonetheless, I think that the program like that, it can be very interesting in the future, especially now, because we learn something from that, and also the project has more stages, so we are continue on developing the program. And I think that, and also knowing from I had the experience working with that, that it's not necessary that we would have to think now that there will be robots instead of living playwrights, but it's good. The living playwrights could use this program as a tool eventually, not that it would write the play for them, but it could, if the playwright is stuck at the moment and he put there the material he already has, the computer can offer him different paths he could choose, and he could work with that. I think it's very similar, like if you would be a translator and you would work with a Google translator and you put it there just to have the very basic translation, and then you are kind of putting your human input in it in a way that you're trying to enrich the text, but the translator kind of offers you the basic data that you work with that later. Yeah, but the last thing, just if I should think honestly, if when we talk about drama, if there would be playwrights working with such a tool, I'm not so sure about it, because I think that the biggest issue that is there, the biggest border, is actually the thing that most of the playwrights I know wouldn't really say out loud that they didn't write the play themselves, but they had someone to help them with, and especially the robot, because I think that it's we're still we kind of perceive art as something that should be that should come from something deeper and completely human. But it could work as a tool. Yeah, that's us. That's probably like everything from me by now. But I'm open to any questions, because I speak about it from the perspective of someone who spent a whole year with that, and I don't really know what's interesting anymore.
Yeah, maybe I could actually show the tool. I think if I can share the screen again, so I will try to show it so that we are not talking just theoretically, but how do I? So this is what the input looks like. So you have to have a name for your scene, and you have to put in some beginning. So usually the beginning would be some setting of a situation. So I tried now to type in just this situation. So we are at a virtual conference talking about a project. And then David could say, I want to tell you about the tool I used. I could reply, how did you like the tool? So this would be the input that a human writes. And we then start it.
Well, now I'm interested. How did I like it?
Yeah. And it takes like half a minute. Yeah.
Because sometimes it's quite creepy because lately I was trying to put there some input and then I kind of give up on that, and then I try to create a new scene, and the facts from the previous scene got in the new one, so I feel quite followed. And once I was Googling something and it appeared there as well, and I didn't know if it was a coincidence or not, but it kind of scared me a bit.
Okay, so it seems like it's listening to you. So the reply starts, it's a little bit scary.
Yeah, he's putting the words in my mouth. Yeah.
This is really scary.
So this is what it looks like, and you can see that there is the English part, which is the one that is actually generated, and then an automated translation to Czech, and it looks quite scary actually. And
Okay.
So this is what it looks like, and then the options David had is either he can click continue if he likes the output, and then we would wait for a continuation, so another 10 lines, or maybe we can say that at some point it becomes stupid, so we can click the red cross to throw away some part of it, and as David said, it doesn't protest, but it just starts generating a different version.
Yeah. So if someone want to know how much it is to use the tool, please don't contact me on Facebook. I don't give a clue.
And so we tried to limit actually the amount of human input possible in it. So we just put in the beginning, and then just time to time, David would choose a different version than the first one. So
yeah, that was the thing even with the show, because usually even when you're working with the text of a living playwright, you do some minor changes sometimes that are outcome of the rehearsing. And here we thought that we shouldn't change much, and we try to be as truthful as possible just to show what is the face of the robot writing at the moment.
Now we have a different answer. How much does it cost? Yeah, it actually has good questions. So do you decide what the ending is? That's actually something you cannot do. So you just put in the beginning, but you cannot decide the ending. Nice. So, well, instead of talking to us, you could just talk to the tool, and it would give you its own answers.
All the answers, yeah.
Okay, so I'll give you a few moments to enjoy it, and I'll stop it again. sometimes it just responds as a politician, so sometimes it just doesn't get anywhere.
Yeah, it really picked up well on my character.
So, well, you worked with it for a long time, so it knows you already. Okay, so that was to have an idea of what the tool actually looks like. So it's definitely far from perfect, and we mentioned some of the problems, and I can mention some more problems that we have and had and will probably have. But as you can see, it's possible to work with it. It's kind of yeah. So in my part, I would like to tell you more about how it is actually made. So it's so the tool that we are using, it's called a language model. A language model is something that can produce language. So you put in some beginning and it can continue with the text by generating more and more and more. And specifically in the project, we are using a language model called GPT-2, which you might have heard about. It's been famous by writing some fake news and so on. So it's been created by OpenAI. So that's a consortium headed by Elon Musk and other clever people. And the way it works is basically that the model read millions of texts from the internet. So just all kinds of texts you can find on the internet. So news stories, books, film subtitles, drama, and whatnot. And that's well, why it just tends to get to the topics that are frequent on the internet, like the sex and violence. And so as you've seen, as you've heard, so it gets the beginning and then it just keeps producing some possible output. And in itself, it just always predicts a word after word until it writes a sentence, and then it writes the next sentence. So it's just kind of simulating what it saw in the text that it read in the training phase. So it saw how to build language. So it does have a pretty good command of English language. And it saw some structure of text. So when we put in a beginning that looks like a drama play, so that there are some characters speaking, so it picks up the format and it picks up the idea that, okay, this should be a dialogue and these should be the topics of the dialogue. It doesn't really understand other things than the text. So it's important to say that current artificial intelligence is basically limited by not experiencing the world, not having other inputs. So it just works with the text. So it doesn't understand what is happening on the stage or things like that. And this limits it severely. It also doesn't understand that actually the people talking are different people, and often they would mix up and we would get this schizophrenia or something. But it does produce viable dialogues. That's like something we could say. And it also tries to maintain some kind of coherence. So the model, when it generates a word, so it has knowledge of basically all the previous text that is there. So when it generates a line, so then it can look back at that line again and be coherent with that. And technically, there is a kind of limitation that when you're generating the next word, so the model only has capacity to look at the last 1024 words. So when the text gets too long, it just starts forgetting things, starts being inconsistent. So that's something we tried to hack in the project by kind of squashing the beginning of it, so keep at least the important points. But still, it cannot go on for too long. So I think the longest scene has a few pages of text. So so this is as far as we could get, but it's still not enough to generate a whole theater play, because, well, after some time, it just starts being nonsense. So that's one of the things that we are trying to improve, is that we actually want to generate it in a kind of hierarchical way, so that we would first just generate a kind of synopsis for the play, which should capture the main ideas. And then based on that synopsis, we would generate the individual scenes so that they are kind of coherent, not only within the scene, but also with each other. We want to work more with the representation of the characters in the play, because right now it becomes often very random. So we want to actually analyze existing plays to look for characters and to find out whether we can tell the model that these two characters are distinct in some way. And there's some work on that, but we'll see. And I would say maybe most importantly, as both I think David and Daniel mentioned, that when you write a play, you usually think in dramatic situations, which the model does not. So dramatic situations is something that drama experts understand, but this is not written in the text, so it's hard for the model to learn, because it only learns what it sees in the text. So we have some experts, actually students from DAMU, annotating drama situations in plays. So they really take scripts of theater plays and they go through them and try to find the dramatic situations and then mark it in the text, like from this line to this line, it's this kind of dramatic situation, and then another one, and we'll try to use it to teach the model how to, well, what the dramatic situation means, basically. There is a lot of ongoing work. At the moment, we've presented the first play, but the project is going on, and next year in, well, spring maybe, I don't know, January, February next year maybe, we should have a second theater play, which should be, well, improved in some ways. We will see what we succeed in. So we have several problems that we're trying to target, and so there will still be an option to see something new. And well, obviously when the theaters open, there will be an option to see this play that you just saw a sample from, so we will be able to visit the theater and see it real live. And just to get a bit more into technical details, so this was the kind of the high level view to get an idea of what is going on. So I just want to show you what the real idea behind language models is. So, well, the principle is we read text and we know which words come after which words. And there is a very simple experiment that we can all do now, that when you get a beginning of a sentence, then you can kind of try to guess what the next word could be. So if I say a beginning of a sentence, which would be, I woke up in the morning and I went to something. So I guess all of you have something pop up in your mind. Maybe I woke up in the morning and went to work, or I went to school, I went to the bathroom, or something else. And you probably wouldn't say, I don't know, I went to the cinema, because that's not what you do in the morning. And you definitely wouldn't say, I went to radiator. Doesn't make sense. So so this is the kind of knowledge that the language model has. So it kind of knows which words can follow after which words, and it just basically measures some statistics in the text. So how often in the texts on the internet do we wake up and go to work, and how often do we wake up and go to the cinema? And you will figure out that yeah, well, when I made some statistics, so to go to work, it appeared 1,640 times in our texts. To go to cinema, it's only 287 times. And this is just going somewhere, not going there in the morning. So if you take in the information about the whole previous text, then it limits the options quite a bit. And should somehow explain that it's actually possible to do this with a computer, that it's very limited. It doesn't understand a lot of things. It definitely doesn't understand things that are not in the text. But in this way, this is really the main idea behind the model, that it just learns words that, well, go together. So there is obviously a lot of research on that. So right now, the models use artificial neural networks, which kind of try to simulate the way our brains work. they, well, simulate it or very stupid way. Like we don't even understand how our brains work. So it's really not easy to try to simulate it in computers. But it takes some basic ideas from what we understand about the brain, and it tries to understand what words mean, which is hard. Like linguists have tried to find something reasonable for ages, like what are word meanings? So do we attach it to things in the real world, or do we describe it with some other text or something else? And the way these programs work is that they again use the same thing that they use for other stuff. So they say a meaning of a word is given by the company it keeps, we say. So the words that it appears together. So when we talk about a horse, so we would talk about the stable, we would talk about horse riding, we would talk about grass, we would talk about, I don't know, feeding the horse. So there are some words that go together with a horse. And when we talk about a dog, so some of the words would be the same. We also feed the dog and we also go out with the dog, but we probably don't ride a dog. So there would be some things would be the same, some things would be different. And when we talk about a table, well, it will be very different. We don't feed a table, but well, we can feed ourselves on a table. So there will be some small similarity. And when we talk about, I don't know, planets in the space, so this would be completely different because we use completely different words when you talk about planets. So so the language model or the neural network, we wouldn't say it understands that a dog, what a dog looks like, or what it feels to touch a horse, or how big really a planet is. That's hard to tell because it never saw anything, but it just knows how we talk about it. So it gets some vague idea of what things are similar. So it would say, okay, so if we go to the cinema, maybe going to the theater is more similar than going to the horse stable. So it would get some of this understanding, and we can see it in the generated text that when we start talking about, I don't know, fire, it would go to some fire workers and firefighters and so on. But again, it has its limits. So I think this was all I wanted to say about the technical details. And as David said, it's the same holds for me. So I'm very happy to answer any further questions about that, because well, I don't know how much you're interested in the real technical details. So I just wanted to get you to see at least some basic idea. And I think to end the talk, we can give floor back to Daniel if he wants to say something more about the play maybe, or the project.
Well, when the text was developed, the other half of the work began, and you can imagine when you have the text where just the lines like this and no other information about the world, where it is, nothing. So and if the text if the text could be like with a lot of nonsense and just nonsense, you can do it anyhow. But if there's a part which make a sense, and the sense is really interesting, you wanna stage it. So I, as a director, was in the role of devil's advocate here, because I knew that there's no real idea in the text. It's just the lines. But I was trying to tell the actors that everything could have sense, and we have to find it. So it was really hard, and in the same time, as David said before, the actors had big problems with the text, with the memory, because the lines is difficult to remember, because there's no continuity and there's no inner world of the characters. So they have to create all the inner world of the characters which is not in the text. There's no information about it. And so there was a lot of work on interpretation. And for example, in the beginning, when we talked with scenographer and with the costume designer about how we will make it, we worked with very abstract imagination, and so we try to put something on the scene we thought that it could be useful. And it was interesting how during the creating of the play, we'll find that that was a very good result to make the scene make scenography like this. And during the time when we find how it ended, then all the other things starting to make sense, and there was a story, and it was actors who find it. When they find that in the last scene the robot isn't real on the scene, that he is disappeared and the human talked to the machine, which is to the energy where is somewhere. And so then we had some happy end about how human disappear into binary world and make some friendship or a relationship with the computer, with the robot in the computer. So it was the kind like it's about isolation. So that was very interesting that we did it during this time, and our stories of our isolation must be in it. But in the same time, there's a theme of it. So, and it's also like that when the machine could write just the dialogues for two, and one of them is a robot who walk around the world, then you can see the picture of isolation because he every time meet just one person. So the form of the dialogue has is also a theme, and I have to say, and it's true, that the last week of the rehearsing, I thought like I was in it, that it's normal play, that there's nothing which make nonsense. And so the effect of the opening was like, I was surprised that people talk that it doesn't make sense, sometimes, and that it's funny and it's dada and it's realism. Yeah, I can see it in it, but in the same time, when you are living with the text like this, and you put in the text like this all from you, and all the people who cooperate on this put their things in it, there's something new. So, and there was a question if a robot or AI could write a play. So this was like director has to work on it because it was experiment. So I said, okay, we try to not change anything. We try to, if we have to something to change, we have to just cut a little lines, not so much, because we have to research it. So it was another kind of work, because it's similar like when we work with the text from living playwright, because you want to put on the stage his play at the first, not just your vision of the play. Or I think it's good to, when you introduce the play for the first time on the stage, a new play, you have this responsibility, because if you how to say, not vulgar, but if you do it bad, the play has a very short life, and because audience couldn't understand if the author was mad or the director or who screwed up. So this responsibility we had all the time with this play, even if it's written by AI. So it was, maybe if I work with a living playwright, I will ask him, could you change this, or could you write something more here because of situation, or could you change it or something like that? And I have no this possibility. So this was very special on this work, that you have to work with a lot of moments like this. In the same time, sometimes the dialogue starts with a very clear situation, and then it goes absolutely to the hell. So we trying to have some continuity in it, and try to building characters and stories of the people in it, because it was interesting and important for me that when the robot meets people, you can more introduce the character of the human in the whole play. So all the pictures or all the meetings with the people are like how they changed after meeting with him, and what is changing in him. So we're trying to find some topics and themes to play about, and I think from the reaction of the audience, online audience, that it is interesting for the people. And what is mean thing or lead thing for me, that this show starts discussion and starts debate. And what was surprising, that the people who watched the opening, a lot of them was 90 minutes discussion about it and had a lot of questions. And the questions are from all levels of our life. Also about, there's a question about author's law, because AI isn't a human, AI is a thing. So there's no tantiums for AI, and who is a author of it. And we had the big discussion with the chief of literature and theater agency Delia about it. And there's a lot of philosophical question we have with it, a lot of question on research of it. So I think, because I can't say I like the project, yeah, I like it, but in the same time, I don't believe that this is the way. But in the same time, I had two possibilities: be outside of this process, or be in it process, and try to realize what AI now can do. So now I know, and I know that there is or I think that there's a lot of possibilities how to develop it, and I must say I'm 100% in still, and I want to work another year on it. But as a director, I want to direct a play by living people, because, as David say, it was very frustrating and sometimes, and really it took all the energy of the people to the stage. And now we really waiting for the live audience to have this energy back. Yeah, and I think that the show could be very intensive when you will see it in the studio of Švanda Theater, because it's a small space, and all the things you can see on a screen is much bigger and much intensive. So I hope that people will enjoy it. We will play it from, I hope, from September of this year, and it will be a normal part of our repertoire. But now we trying to develop new play, and now we are in the process of how we will do it, and now we have some ways, and we're trying to do something with it. So I think that I have a lot of experience. Actors has a lot of experience. Yesterday we had a discussion with the actors and talking about, with 1 month distance, about how it was, how was the work for them, what they like, what they unlike. So it was very interesting for us, and we want to have some points from this discussion in our research, because it's the research of for technological things, but also for us. So what is interesting for me on this project, that it's art and it's also science. So so it's art and science. It's traditional, and I think that we could do, for example, a lot of workshops with that, with the students, because you can develop a little situation, you can work on it, you can have experience with it, and you can say if you like it or not, if you think that it have some sense to work on it or not. But I think that from my case, that it's very important to have experience with it to judge it. Well, it is. That's what I wanted to say. So maybe there's a space for some question, if there's some, because maybe there will be more interesting topics than I can offer now.
Actually, we have one question from Martin Jakubec. He's asking, what was the scariest or weirdest thing your AI created?
Well, I might start. I think that the scariest thing was actually the amount of the violence and sex combined. Not because I would be creeped out by the robot that he's writing scenes about one man trying to kill another by sticking his finger in his a-hole, but it was more about that it showed me more about us human, what are our most common themes. I think that it's more like frightening from the aspect that it reveals a lot about us, because the computer kind of uses our topics, what we are thinking about, and it has no filter. I always say that it's like if you have a child at home and you talk about something in front of him, some things you wouldn't say out loud in public, but the child doesn't know, so the child goes out and speaks about anything, whether it's racism stuff, political issues, like religion as well, because the robot doesn't think that it's something that shouldn't be said out loud from this point of view. So it's kind of revealing in a way what are actually our topics and what we write about. And I think that the other aspect of the question was what was the
scariest and weirdest.
Well, that's kind of the same for me.
Yes, that's also my point. When you were talking about the sex and violence, it reminds me that the AI is somehow like mirroring the society. So for me, it's a really, really good question to observe it like this. And we have another question. How would you compare the writing speed of the robot to that of a living author?
Well, well, it's hard to say because you know definitely when it comes to quantitative writing, the robot is writing much quicker than a person. But at the same time, there's much more material that you don't just use, because a living person would think about it first and then put the thoughts on the paper. This is if actually if you could put on paper all your brainstorming, the way you're thinking and the same speed, it would be how the robot writes. So you can't really compare it, because when it comes to the writing, there's definitely it's quicker, it's faster. And if it was at the point where every offer of the text from the computer is perfect and you really can work with that, that no person could write that quickly. But I wouldn't say that it's particularly like faster. And because the script, I was working with the thing with the computer, and I was developing the script for 2 months in a way, but not that I would be sitting at it like 24/7, but at the same time I would just spend for my writing.
So we can proceed to another questions. Can the actors fully identify themselves with the characters they are portraying? It is more demanding than if the screenplay was written by a human.
Yeah, I think that actors, and we talked about it yesterday with them, they said that they first touch with the script was like they're trying to read it, and after 30 pages they threw it away, and they'll be not able to read it until the end. And so the first experience in the first rehearsal, reading rehearsal, was like, we are more scary than before, but they didn't talk about it. We thought that they are absolutely okay with the text. So it was good for the director when you have the actors who don't believe in text, but they don't show it. But they talked that, for example, Denisa Barešová talked about that she normally is trying to work with some intuition, and it was impossible in it. And she tried to work really different ways, and she was like she don't know how she will do it, because she wasn't able to identify herself with the text. I can't say identify with the characters, because I think there's no characters. They have to create the characters. So I think that she is identified with the character, but she must sometimes she must lie on the stage to go to another line. So there's some holes in the life of the characters and the actor in the play. They have to find the way. So we are still in the process to find the way in some little spaces in the play. So we have to work on it still. And I think that really difficult was the work for the character of Robot, played by Jakob Ertermeier, because there's no, it's different kind of show of thinking, because it's not thinking, it's counting. So we had, or he was very brave to work with it, but in the same time, that was what created the character of the robot, the way of thinking. And he was inspired by the children, he was inspired by autistic people. It was inspiration from David, and it was very good for us. So well, I think that, or not think, I can say for sure that actors had a big problem with it, and they were also co-authors of the text, like through the interpretation, through the actor's interpretation. So this is my answer for it.
Thank you very much.
If I may, I just received a question from a student at the EMU as well, Daniela Samsonova, who gives us a question that I think is quite interesting, and it's from a bit different perspective, and it's a question whether we thought about the ethical aspects, the moral aspects of the work like that, or we just perceive it as a theater experiment. And I think that it's kind of a question for all of us. I just must say that, of course, I was questioning it from the ethical aspect as well, but I kind of felt selfishly that if there's a time where robots should take my work as a playwright, that I want to be the first one to know. Also, also, if that was the case, I could be the one who could say that it can't be done. Maybe I'm lying all the time. Now, maybe it's in a much better state than it is. But from my perspective, I think I still perceive that the AI is more like a tool that we still have the possibility to guide. So I think that we should perceive as a tool, but yeah, and that's why I was able to allow myself to work with that. And the more I work with that, the less I had the ethical problems, because I realized how much the computer is depending on human input. So.
Yeah, so from our part, so actually with these strong language models, the ethics of it is something that's widely discussed in the machine learning community. And actually we can say that for the particle model that we used, which is GPT-2, so the creators of the model, they initially didn't want to make the model public because they were afraid that it's creating the quality of the text that it's creating is so good that it could be misused for fake news or for other bad purposes. So originally they only released some small limited version, and there was a discussion like whether such tools should be available to people. And then it was like decided that, okay, so for one thing, it's not that perfect still, so it's probably safe to release it. But with a stronger model, which they have, so which is GPT-3, they didn't release it. They only provide access to people who ask for it, and they have to fill in like some reasons why they want to use it, what they want to use it for, and they monitor access to it to figure out whether people are using it for good things or bad things. So it's definitely a great question, an important one, and yeah, we just something that we think and something that a lot of the people in the AI community think is that, well, the AI exists, the level of the models is as it is. We should be aware of the capabilities of it. So this is why we should use it, we should work with it so that we learn what it really can do, what it cannot do. So this is something that both David and Daniel said, that when you work with the tool, then you learn what the limits are, what the capabilities are, and you are hopefully you become less scared of it because it's become something more familiar. So one of the goals of the project itself is somehow like demystifying this AI, so that to really show what it can do, what it cannot do, that it's somehow, well, in its idea, the idea behind it is quite simple actually, so that the whole society kind of understands what AI is, because, well, it's probably going to stay. I don't think that people will make AI illegal or something. So we should just learn what it is and how to work with it.
Yeah, as I said, I think that you can ignore it, you can deny it, but AI is here. So what now? Yeah, for me, it's better to learn about it and try to find ways of cooperation, and we have some impact on it. So I think that as we can learn, we learn something AI, and we something learn from AI, and I'm not sure it's bad thing. So it's a question, but I haven't bad feeling after all this, and this is very important for me. If I feel sick or not about it, and I don't feel sick.
Thank you very much. We don't have any more questions. If you don't have anyone, David. So that's all. Any last words?
Well, come to Švanda Theater when we will open to see our show. And if you are still interested about things about AI and about our project, just visit the websites theatre.com, and there's a lot of information. There will be also a script. There will be also a correction of the script. You can see the showcase. You can see the member of the themes, and also here's a contact on us, and we can be in touch with you.
Okay, thank you very much and have a nice weekend.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.